That's how you'll find her. And we'll make sure that we don't. Otherwise, we would love to be able to use your story for future use. And then, yeah, we're not doing an intermission. No need for that. And then just as far as Zoom goes, we assume that everybody's been on Zoom, but if you haven't, feel free to toggle around. In the top right corner of Zoom, you'll see a view button. You can change that from speaker view to gallery view, whether you want to see everybody or just the person talking. You can go to full screen as well. You're welcome to be on camera or just have your name or photo pop up, whatever you like. But if you are going to tell a story, we would love it if you were on camera so we can see you. And then there's the chat function. You can chat to the group or individuals. And then otherwise, I talked about the reactions. So feel free to play around with that. And if you accidentally leave, you can get back in pretty easily. Again, don't forget to fill out those Mad Libs. You can do those as we go through the night. There are 2 of those and they're both in the chat. So just click the links. And again, they're totally anonymous. So don't worry about sharing anything too dirty. No one will know it was from you. A couple storytelling tips. Remember, this is not group therapy. It's not stand-up comedy. And the more genuine and vulnerable you are, the more supportive and more into your story the crowd is going to be. So just hang it all out on the line, and I assure you, people are going to be pumped. We've got a couple of judges tonight. Huge thanks to our judges. We've got Amy King from the Teton County Library, and then we also have Billy Arnold, our county reporter here at the Jackson Hole News and Guide. And I'm stoked that we have people tuning in from outside of Jackson, so that's really exciting. We can get people from anywhere in the world these days. And then again, Leah is our timekeeper, so huge thanks to Leah for producing. She's kind of pulling all the strings behind the scenes tonight with these events, and then also managing the time. And then you are invited to come check out Teton County Library at another time, or maybe on a different device, however you want to do it. But we are on all of the socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest these days. I don't know. Maybe check for Pinterest too. I don't know what's going on out there, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, you could spend weeks, months of your lives finding out things about the Teton County Library. All right. Well, without further ado, let's see, actually do another scan here. Looks like we were up to about 28 people. Anyone else want to throw their name in the hat? We've got 2 names so far, plus I'm going to kick it off by telling a story. If you don't feel it right now and you want to throw your name in a little bit later, just make sure we get it in before the last person. But otherwise, yeah, we welcome anybody who wants to tell a story relating to tonight's theme, which again is first impressions. And oh, Rochelle put in here, the worst first impression was a job interview here in town and the owner was wearing 2 different colored shoes. I'd like to hear more about that. If you want to tell that story, Rochelle, let me know, and we'll put your name in the hat. Sounds like there's probably some more details there. And if anybody wants to feel as though they're actually sitting in the Pink Garter Theater, Sharif has put the screenshot of the one of our previous story slams in the chat, so you can download that and put it into your background. All right, well, everybody, I think I covered all the important stuff, and so let's get this going. I'm going to kick it off with my own story tonight. So here we go. And actually, I saw a name on here who was part of this story. I'm not going to point that person out, but I have a feeling they may recognize the story, and hopefully I get all the details right. Okay, so it was a bunch of years ago. It was the Friday before Christmas, and I came home and I ran into my 2 neighbors who were 2 of my really close buddies, and they were dressed like totally dressed up in suits, ties, shiny shoes. Their hair was combed. They'd brushed their teeth, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And they said, "We're going to go party crashing. We're going to crash some Christmas parties. Go get a suit on and come with us." And I was like, "Oh my God, this sounds awesome." So I run into my house and I grab my finest 3-piece, far from tailored suit. And I start getting dressed. I had just bought it recently at the local haberdashery. You guys probably know Browse and Buy. And so I'm in the mirror, tying my tie. I'm probably on like attempt number 17. And I see this car pull up in front of our houses. And all of a sudden, like 5 gorgeous women, 5 friends of ours, pour out of the car. They look like they had just showed up at the Oscars, full gowns and dresses, makeup, hair done, jewelry. And I'm like, oh my God, this is getting better and better. So we all collect and have a pre-mission beverage to build up our confidence and kind of compliment each other on how we all quote unquote, clean up nicely. And then we pile into the sober chauffeur's vehicle and we head to the first party. So there's 8 of us, there's 5 women, 3 guys. And so we kind of make this plan. We're like, all right, if we're going to crash some parties, we should probably send the women in first, and that'll at least get the dudes the best possible chance of not getting kicked out of the party. So we show up at the first party and we're walking up to the door, building up our confidence, kind of giving each other a pep talk. Like, how could they possibly kick us out if we're looking this good? And, the good news is we had like 3 parties on the docket to go crash. So we had a few chances to get it right. So we get up to the first door and, like, without hesitation, Deidre throws open the first door, and it's this living room full of like khaki dockers and cashmere sweaters and swoopy haircuts. And she blasts through the door, through the threshold, and she trips and she eats shit right in the entranceway. Every head in the living room turns and is staring at Deidre lying on the ground in her high heels and her full dress. And our whole crew is like, what the hell's going on? People are rushing over to help pick her up. And as like dudes are like picking her up off the ground and offering her a drink, she kind of shoots us a wink to let us know that it was totally intentional. And it was the perfect move. Like, it completely redirected everybody's attention. Everybody's like trying to pick this woman up off the ground. And the rest of us sort of just like made our way into the party and mixed into the crowd. And so I was mingling and wishing people Merry Christmas, drinking some eggnog, saying thanks to people as they were complimenting me on my not so well-fitting suit. And when people asked how I knew the hosts, I said, I don't. Well, the second party was not as dramatic of an entrance, but we definitely got in. We were kind of starting to like feel good. We were figuring out our power that we had with our nice attire. So a lot of the same, like high fives, cheers, Merry Christmas, and a few guys being like, so you dudes are with those girls? And we're like, yep, we're feeling like really confident. And then it was time to get to the third and final party of the night. So we're making our way to the Elks bowling alley at the Elks Lodge here in Jackson. Many of you, I'm sure, know it. So we get there and we're feeling pretty confident, like we're 2 for 2 and not getting kicked out of these parties. We've got some liquid courage flowing through our veins. And we walk in to this final party at the bowling alley, and we instantly realize like we stick out. Come to find out, it was a theme party. It was your favorite sweatshirt party, which in my opinion is like the world's lamest theme for any party ever. It literally looked like a sea of people celebrating Sunday morning. And I kind of got the sense that like most of those people would have shown up in a hoodie anyway. So like someone just by default was like, let's make it a theme. So I'm kind of hanging out in the back, like checking out the scene and then like figuring out my next move. And out of nowhere, this little woman like storms up to me, marches up to me. Her lips are pursed and her forehead is furled. And she looks up at me. I'm about to say hi and introduce myself. And before I have the chance, she says, who do you know here? And I was like, uh-oh. So I start scanning the crowd and I realize I've got like seconds to come up with a valid answer. And then luckily, not one, but 2 familiar faces pop out of the crowd. So I point over Angry Girl's shoulder and I say, well, I hooked up with Sarah once. And then I point over her other shoulder and I said, oh yeah, and Matt and I, we used to hook up with the same girl. Like not at like exactly the same time, but over the course of the same few months. But we didn't know that until much later. And so Angry Girl kind of looks over both her shoulders to confirm that there is in fact a Sarah and a Matt in attendance. And then she looks back at me and she says, do you always talk like this to people you've just met? And I said, well, yeah, it weeds out the weak ones and lets me know who I want to be friends with. And her eyebrows shoot up and she kind of lets out this real guttural growl. And then she spins around and storms off in Sarah's direction. And I'm like, oh, uh-oh. And she's almost at Sarah. And Sarah just happens to look up in my direction and she sees me and she starts coming running over, goes right past Angry Girl. And she's like, Jeff, Merry Christmas. Damn, you look good. Thanks, everybody. That's my story. All right. Well, appreciate you guys listening in. And let's see, I'll go through a couple of our Mad Libs here and make sure I refresh. Again, these are a fun way for everybody to be anonymously involved if you don't want to tell a story tonight. All right, we'll start with the best or worst first impression I ever made was getting kicked out of the campus buffet for rollerblading. Ooh, well, I think the worst impression you probably made was just simply the fact that you were rollerblading. Never mind being at the campus buffet. See, nice part about these being anonymous is I can make fun of you, and it's like I'm just making fun of a zombie, because you can make fun of zombies and nobody cares. So if you're anonymous, it goes back and forth. All right, the best. Okay, I think this is the worst. The worst first impression I ever made was when my best friend's husband refers to me as, quote, the girl who farted at Tea Garden. Girl farts are really funny. Everybody knows guys fart, but girl farts have a special aura to them. All right, my first impression of sushi was, that's disgusting, but now I think it's heaven. I agree. My first trip to sushi, I got the chicken. Now I like sushi, which is good for my palate, but not as good for my bank account. All right, everybody. Well, let's see. I'm checking the chat to see if we have any other names. We do have 2 names in here, so if that's all we have, that's totally great. And I'm going to mix them up. We've got Hamish and Kelly in here. And here we go. As of right now, everybody's getting to tell a story. And our first one tonight will be Hamish. Welcome.
Well, thank you. When do I start?
You are on. So as soon as you feel comfortable, go for it.
I feel very comfortable. Yes. Right. Well, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And that was my kind of motto in various small business enterprises that I have either succeeded or failed at in my life, my long life. And before I lived in Jackson, where I have now lived for nearly 20 years, I lived in Vail for nearly 20 years. And when I was in Vail with my ex-wife way back in 1986, we opened Scottish Imports retail shop right in the core of Vail Village. And it was called Scotch in the Rockies. And we had that for 17 years. But anyway, I built out the interior with friends when this was going to be our grand opening day. And I put a lot of money into this. And I was getting away from landscape laboring and working banquets at the Marriott Hotel, where I served Bob Hope, by the way. And anyway, opening day was going to be special. And it was 4 days before Christmas. And, we're getting the shop all ready, of course, to make the best first impression. And I was fiddling with some things. The doors were unlocked now. It was 10 o'clock. And this wasn't an itsy bitsy Scottish shop with Loch Ness monsters and tartan this and tartan that and willy warmers. It was nice stuff, beautiful cashmeres and Celtic kind of gifts and Scottish golf things and mohair blankets and nice stuff, cashmere capes. So it's opening day and I'm fiddling around in the bay window. The shop had 3 different rooms to it. There was the entrance room with a big door coming into a nice big, well, it's a very small shop. But anyway, entrance room, and then through an archway into the gift room, which is where I was, and then through another archway into where the clothing stuff was. And I was in the bay window of the middle room, fiddling with some shop displays in the window. And I look out. My wife, by the way, she's away getting some last minute errands. And I look out the window and, oh, here they come. Our first customers, Mr. and Mrs. Richie Rich, looking so dandy and so fine. They're coming walking towards my store, and I'm all like, excited to open the door and say, welcome to Scots on the Rockies. You're our first customer. You know, I decided not to do that. If it's not Scottish, it's crap thing. But anyway, I hadn't told you about this though, but when I was putting in the lighting and stuff like that, I was doing all the tracks, and I found out you could actually hang a ceiling fan wire from the track to the fan, and I mounted the fan, but the fan wasn't just to distribute heat or cold, it was to create movement like music in a retail shop creates, you know, it dissipates stillness, visual and audio, you know. So a fan moving is in fact some action. Anyway, I see him coming and I'm standing up in one of the cabinets to be in the window, and I see them coming. So I turn around and I leap off the cabinet, and the fan slices my forehead. And I kind of go down like that, and I go, oh, I didn't think fans had that much power, you know. But anyway, I kind of put my hand up like that, and I thought, I've still got time to get to the door to let these people in. And I rushed over to the door and I grabbed, and I opened the door, and by this time the blood was closing my right eye, and it was all down my nice Irish linen shirt. And these guys, I opened up and they were like, they were totally shocked. And I was standing like that, and they did, you know, and then all of a sudden the guy said, get him on that seat over there. So they dragged me outside the shop and they put me down on one of the seats outside. Well, it was 4 days before Christmas. It was cold. They threw a mohair blanket over me, ruining that too. And this was in the days before, you know, cell phones. So the guy says, where's the phone? And I said, in there behind the sales counter, you know. So he goes in and he calls the paramedics, and it was all a lot of fuss over nothing, because you know how a facial thing bleeds. It wasn't much at all, but that's what it was, right? Anyway, that's my story, folks. It wasn't truly all a bad first impression, because they became regular customers and we were friends with them forever after. Thank you.
Yes. Nice work, Hamish. It's funny that hey, can you hit mute on your? There you go. The story I told at the last one was so similar. I had a head wound, was bleeding, couldn't see, and bled all over someone else's shop. At least you were bleeding on your own shop. So I'm glad to hear it worked out well and that they became long-term customers. And after the story slam's over, we can chat, because I want to find out where you actually go to buy willy warmers. That sounds like something I should get. All right, Hamish, that was so great. Thank you so much. And nothing like a bloody first impression. All right, so I am going to check on our Mad Libs here. And all right, my first impression of Story Slam was intimidating AF. But now I think fun, public speaking. That's kind of awesome. That's actually really awesome. I love that this Story Slam helps someone out there get over a fear of public speaking. So glad we could be an influence in your life, whoever you are. What else do we have for Mad Libs? How about, well, this sounds like another worst first impression. My worst first impression that I ever made was when I skid marked my undies during prom because I had post-race diarrhea from a cross-country meet. I had never met my date before. Well, for those of you who maybe are new to the Cabin Fever Story Slam, we've had a long-running theme that seems to make its way into all of our events, no matter what the overall theme is. There's always someone or some story that has to deal with poop. So we can check that one off the list for tonight. We have fulfilled our quota, so thank you. All right, well, let's see. Last check here to see if anyone else wants to tell a story. I'm, again, just scanning the chat real quick. I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. But if not, we've got one more storyteller. Might be a little bit shorter of a slam tonight, but that's all right. It's more quality than quantity, and we do have a few more. Oh, Ryan Newray. All right, sweet. Story Slam regular. I'm going to throw you in there. So we've got now 2 more names in the bucket. Thanks, Ryan. And if we'll do last call on that right now. Okay, so we've got Kelly and Ryan in here. One of you is going next. Story about first impressions, and it is going to be Ryan. You are up next. All right, welcome, Ryan Newray, a familiar face here at the Cabin Fever Story Slam. And Ryan,
so much.
let you take it away.
Thanks, library. I want to say hi to Hamish. It's good to see you. Yeah, so I wasn't thinking of doing this, but then it was very obvious at the same time. A first impression of someone who may not know this on the other end. But anyway, this was a few Thanksgivings ago. I was in Jackson, and it was the first time, I was with a group of friends, and I didn't really have any care about being somewhere. And I put a lot of weight into it. And there was going to be, a close friend who was going to make the meal, and I was going to help them. And there was this whole day that was, in a sense, planned out, but it was also kind of leisurely. And, of course, the emphasis around this day was the turkey. So we had gone the night before Thanksgiving, of course, to get this really big, like, what was it, 30, 40? Does that sound right? That's really big. But it was a big turkey. And a gal friend had it in her fridge because she bought it and she had a big fridge. I'm not going to say her name. I'll call her Brittany because she has a very unique name. And so Brittany has this turkey, and we had agreed, around 10 o'clock that I would get the turkey and take it to the house, and we'd start thawing it and so on. And so I'm calling her, and the phone is immediately going to voicemail, and I'm like, okay, I'm sure she's gonna pick up. It's all good. You can, do your thing. 10:30 comes along, 11. I get dressed. I know where she lives. Of course, I come up to her house, and she lives in a kind of a basement duplex type of thing. She has a room below, and she just has this little window. I'm standing outside the window, and I just keep calling over and over again, wanting so badly to just start, knocking on the window. I don't see any light. Finally, after 3 or 4 times, I just say, that's it, screw it. And I just start pounding on the window. And, part of me thought there's no one there, but if I'm really lucky, she's gonna be there and I get to chew her out. Sure enough, someone opens the thing, and it's this guy she was seeing at the time that I knew. And all I remember is like, oh God, like the skinny little guy, naked as can be. He opens the window. Ryan, what are you doing? And I'm like, dude, where is Brittany? Where is she? And there's all this commotion in the background and so on. And this is my point of the first impression, is that one of the persons who was there in the background had never met me yet. I'm just this voice that's kind of screaming at them from outside. So I meet them at the entryway of the house, and the gal who has the turkey, she's kind of sleepy-eyed, and she has this big t-shirt on, and I have these like heels and a coat, and I'm like, where the fuck is the turkey? And she's just like, whoa, like calm down, like chill out. And there's other naked people down below, downstairs, just like kind of peeking their head out and like looking at me. And I'm almost to the point where I want to say, like, I see you guys down there, like, where's the turkey? And she's telling me about how she lost her phone, or it's broken, or something to that extent. But anyway, I remember being just short of basically shaking her as she's in this moo-moo, like not really awake. And then someone basically coming up with the turkey as if it's like an offering and I'm an angry god. And to this day, I don't think I've ever been so angry, but I have to laugh knowing that there was one person down there in particular, whatever was going on, who had never met me. And so whenever they heard my name, they must have just thought of this voice coming from outside going, where the fuck is the turkey? Thank you all.
Nice, Ryan. I love it. I feel like I feel like there's more story there. Like, I want to know what, like, there's this whole house full of naked people. And like, I love that you're just like focused on like, I need this fucking turkey. It's like, wait, what else is going on? Maybe you didn't need the turkey. Awesome. Well, thanks for stepping up there at the last minute, Ryan. Appreciate that. And well done as always. Let's see. We've got a couple more Mad Libs that have come in here. Okay, so I want to make sure I don't read the same ones twice. My first impression of my ex was mysterious and hot, but now I think depressed and distant. Well, at least it's your ex. We'll skip over to the other one here. And the worst first impression I ever made was when I cried at a party in a new city. 2 years later, I'm still best friends with the host. Nice. Oh no, that's best. Or is it worst? That's kind of both. I like that. You threw me for a loop. My best first impression I ever made was streaking at my college freshman orientation. I'm sure there's people that still talk about you. I'm gonna just throw this out there. I like get the sense that might be Sharif. That might have been Sharif. So I mean, you don't have to own up to it, but that's the kind of like, I feel like Sharif, whether that's true or not, you could have maybe been that person. Okay. Well, oh, it looks like we do have another name to throw in. Okay. Rochelle is going to tell a story. So I'm going to put Rochelle's name in there. Sweet. Thanks, Rochelle. So that gives us a total of 4 storytellers. We do have room for one more, but don't feel pressured, anyone. Again, it's all about quality, not quantity. We've already had a couple awesome stories, and I'm excited to hear the next 2. So we've got Rochelle and Kelly in the bucket now, and I'll mix them up. And we've got Kelly. Awesome. Longtime friend. So stoked you're tuning in. Welcome, Kelly.
Thanks, guys. Honestly, if you picked Rochelle's name next, I was going to like completely lose it. I'm standing here like kind of have like the sweats and all of it. Because I think what's really funny about this topic is that by telling the story, I'm leaving all of you with the first impression of me because none of you know me. So it's kind of like meta, feels very meta. But so my story is this. In 2017, I spent about 6 months or so convinced that there was a woman trying to steal my husband. So they had met at a bar one night after a baseball game. I live in San Diego, California, and my husband, Ryan, had gone out with our best friend, Scott, kind of as Scott's wingman. And so, it was supposed to be an early night. They said they were just going to go to the game and maybe grab a beer. And at about 2 a.m. in the morning, I get a text from my husband saying, I'm Ubering home and I'm leaving Scott, like making out with this hot girl named Jamie. So Ryan gets home, we have a good laugh. Within a couple of days, I'm sort of like pressing Scott for more information about this girl. And he was a little like hesitant to say much because in truth, he technically like wasn't officially single. He had been dating a girl long distance and he's a really stand-up guy. And I think he was embarrassed by his behavior. And he kind of felt like, what he had done was like a little bit of a lapse in judgment. So he didn't say too much more about it. So a couple months later, Ryan, my husband, makes plans with a different friend to go back to downtown San Diego for a Supercross event. So our friend Danny comes over and they're getting ready to leave and like Ryan's gathering all of his things and him and Danny are talking about their plan. And Ryan's like, yeah, we're going to go first to this bar called the Blind Burro because Jamie's bartending. And I'm like, what? Like Jamie's bartending, right? And so it sort of led to this like kind of awkward thing where I'm trying to be cool, but I'm actually like giving him the inquisition of like, why are you talking to Jamie? And like, I thought she hooked up with Scott. And like, why do you have her information? And this doesn't make any sense, you know? So he explains that he and Jamie had exchanged information that night. And like, Scott is, Scott's a wonderful guy and he's like our best friend, but he can be like really awkward on the communication side, especially when it comes to girls. So like, I wasn't super surprised to hear Ryan say like, yeah, Scott was being kind of weird. So like Jamie and I talked a bunch, and turns out that Ryan and Jamie work in similar industries, and Jamie had found him on Facebook and they had been communicating and blah, blah, blah. And she works at this bar. And, you know, like in my mind, I'm like, this can't be good, right? Like this girl can't have good intentions. Like if she hooked up with Scott, then why is she communicating with you? And so of course I do what any sane person does. And my husband leaves for a Supercross race and I immediately start like Google stalking this girl. Like, who is she? What does she want with my husband? And, you know, find these photos, and she's beautiful, right? Like long-legged and well endowed and blonde. And she's got this beautiful smile and she's traveled the world, and she works in a nonprofit, and she like seems to have these amazing friends and family. And I'm like, my head is like ready to explode, right? And I become convinced that this girl is like absolutely out to steal my husband. So several months later, Scott has ended his relationship with his long distance girlfriend, and unbeknownst to me, he outreaches to Jamie and they go out on a couple dates. And so Scott at some point says, hey, like, I've gone on a couple of dates with this girl, Jamie. I really want you to meet her. And can you come out to this bar? So I'm like, yes, I can come out to the bar. Right. So I'm like coming in hot. Like I'm ready to have my like Real Housewives moment and like confront this girl who is like definitely in it for my husband and not Scott. And I'm going to call her bluff. And so we meet at the bar, and 3 minutes later, we were like embraced in this giant hug. And 3 hours later, we were like pouring our hearts out to one another at the bar. And 3 years later, I was the officiant of her wedding to Scott. And so now she's like my ride or die girl. And we laugh every time I tell the story of how in the beginning, she was just the woman trying to steal my man.
Yes.
That's my first impression story.
That's so awesome. I love the cat claws were just like cackles are up. I do like that you incorporated one of Jamie's positive attributes was that she worked at a nonprofit. Like I work at a nonprofit, so and the library is a nonprofit. So like I was just like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
people see me, they see the library. We work at nonprofits. I'm sure that's how it is, you know, globally.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
You're better people than we are. I mean, you really are, honestly.
Yeah, but that's not because of the nonprofit. No. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. Kelly and I were actually talking earlier today, and she's like, you know, I don't think I have a story. So I'm so pumped that not only did you throw your name in, but that was so awesome to hear it. And it's so good. I love how it came back around. Awesome. Thanks, Kelly, so much. Appreciate you chiming in there. And so let's see, we've got one more name in there. Double check here. Okay, we've got Rochelle up next. And I know how that feels, actually. Kelly was saying she's kind of sweating it, like if her name didn't get picked next, like totally appreciate the feeling of like waiting it out. And for those of you who have never been to one of our live events, when we were doing them and we would have up to 10 storytellers, you can just imagine, like we have a mix of everybody. Some people were like, I can't wait to get up there. I hope my name gets picked tonight. And then other people were kind of biting their nails, not even sure if they really wanted to tell a story, but they at least mustered up the guts to put their name in the bucket. And so it's a whole range of emotions for different people while they're waiting to get picked. So we feel you. And I guess what I'm trying to say is thanks for going through that, what can be a stressful few moments before getting picked, because it's always worth hearing your story. So thanks. All right, let's see, back to our Google Forms here. Which one did I not read yet on this? Sushi, Story Slam, X, did all those. Oh, we just got a surprise visitor. This is Ramon. He says, what's up? Ramon's a punk rock Chewini. Welcome, Ramon.
Hi, Ramon.
Okay, my first impression of Story Slam was poop jokes. But now I think butthole, butthole, butthole. I didn't read that one through, so that actually caught me off guard. And so for those of you who've been tuning into the Story Slam for quite a while, that's sort of an inside joke that obviously someone is trying to bring back. But you got me. I didn't read the whole thing, and so that was pretty funny. All right, and then for our other one, the best or the worst first impression. Let's see. For some reason, these refresh in out of order. So my whole plan was kind of blown, is to just go down the list. All right. Sneeze. Oh, this sounds fun. I'm going to say this is the worst first impression I ever made, was when I held in a sneeze and instead farted in front of Natalie Otterstrom in 7th grade science class. Who hasn't done that? I'll leave one more for the end there. But anyways, okay, without further ado, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, but our fourth and final storyteller of the night, we've got Rochelle. Welcome, Rochelle. And Rochelle, oh, perfect. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, so this is a first impression of somebody else, not me. I was perfect in this whole scenario. So I had just moved back to Jackson in 2014, and I had spent the last 15 years of my life working in the hotel industry. Got totally sick of it and decided to branch out and throw my name in the hat for all kinds of office jobs, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And I get an interview. I'm not going to tell you where. And I'm sitting there talking to the woman who owns the business, and she's, you know, being very professional, and she's asking me all kinds of questions, and we're having a very nice interview. And I keep noticing that she has 2 different colored shoes on, the same shoe, but just 2 different colors. And I was trying not to keep making eye contact with her shoes and making eye contact with her face. But it was very difficult, but I did it. And I must have made a very good impression on her, because she called in the girl who I would be co-working with and wanted me to meet her and make sure that we got along well together. And so the other girl that would be my future coworker comes into the room and sits down and looks at me and says hello, and then looks at the person interviewing me and says, "Why do you have 2 different colored shoes on?" And I couldn't stand it anymore. And I just started cracking up and mentioned that I had noticed it like when I first walked into the room. And then she was mortified that I wouldn't tell her that she had 2 different shoes on. But that's it.
Can't hear you, Jeff.
You're still muted, Jeff. You're still muted.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go. So I always do this thing where like my brain like goes down the road and like finishes the story, and it's never the correct ending. But for some reason I thought this was going to be like a test, and it wasn't, obviously. But now I want to use that if I'm ever interviewing someone and kind of figure out like, are they on my team? Will they point out that I'm wearing 2 different color shoes? Or maybe it'll be something else. Maybe it'll, you know, be a strategically placed booger on my lip, and see if they are on my team or not. But I like that. I've actually gotten into the habit of like, I'm kind of type A about stuff, and I'm trying to like balance that out a little bit. And so I've been forcing myself to wear 2 different color socks on a regular basis, and just like teach myself that it's not a big deal. And I went to the doctor's recently, and I had to take off my shoes or whatever. And he's like, "What's with the different color socks?" He's like, and I'm like, oh my God, all of a sudden I felt like I was being judged by my doctor, who I'm there to like get this, you know, professional medical advice. I'm like, what's the big deal? I just have on 2 different color socks. But he thought it was the weirdest thing. Anyways, thank you so much, Rochelle, for your story. I'm glad you got to elaborate on the one that you alluded to in the chat. So really appreciate that. Looks like we've got a few more Mad Libs coming in, but that's the end of our storytellers. So right now I'm going to let Amy and Billy figure out their scores. Actually, I don't know how they're doing it. Maybe scores. It may just be, I don't know, a feeling from the soul. But once they've figured out first, second, and third, we'll talk about what the prizes are tonight. We do have prizes. And then we'll make sure we get those relayed back to all of you. But first and foremost, thank you, Hamish, Ryan, Kelly, and Rochelle for stepping up and sharing those awesome stories. We really appreciate it. All right, we'll get to some of our Mad Libs here. We do have a few more. It looks like that came in. Make sure I refresh these. Okay, got a long one here. All right, I don't know. Okay. The best first impression I ever made was when I crushed some guys that I had never met at a game of horse, where you have to make a bunch of weird basketball shots. Okay, got it. Everybody knows that. You shoot and you get an H or an O. I have never played basketball. I'm terrible. It was a miracle. I made every shot. They kept thinking I was lying to them and that I was actually a basketball legend, but they were very impressed. Well, I haven't talked to them in 15 years, so maybe it was a bad first impression after all. They were a little butthurt that you beat them. The rookie came in hot. I like that. And then I think I read all of those. Well, yep. All right, cool. You checked them all off. Well, let me tell you guys a little bit about what else is going on in the Story Slam world. I'm going to pull my notes back up here. As always, don't forget, you can find out more about Cabin Fever, Story Slam, and everything that Teton County Library is doing. It's at tclib.org. Is that correct, Leah? tclib.org, right. And then also, as I mentioned, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. So check all that stuff out. The library is open here in Jackson for all of your needs. Our prizes tonight, as they have been recently, we've got, so all of our first, second, and third placers will get one of these awesome Cabin Fever Story Slam hats. These are not for sale. You can only get these from winning at one of our Story Slams. So it's kind of cool. There's quite a few of these after 7 years. They're not all this color, but there's quite a few hats that are out there floating around Jackson Hole and beyond. So it's fun when you cross paths with someone who's got one on, because you're like, ooh, you killed it at a storytelling event, didn't you? So everybody gets a hat, and then second place gets a $20 gift certificate to their business of choice. And first place gets a $40 gift certificate to their business of choice. And then again, thanks to Amy King and Billy Arnold, our two judges tonight. Appreciate what you guys were doing for us. And oops, sorry, I'm looking for my phone because I have a feeling that's probably going to be where the there it is. Where
I
the
texted it to you, and it's in the chat to you.
Oh, sweet. And look at this. I've got texts from people. It's all over the place. Okay, cool. Well, we have our sorry, I'm like reading my text and like, anyways, we have our finalists, or our podium here. Again, thanks to Leah, Amy, and Billy for being our timer and our judges. And again, thanks to all of you for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. Like, you know, we can't be in person doing this right now. We will be at some point. So it's really awesome to see all of your faces, or at least your names listed there on the internet and hanging out with us. We love it. Our next Story Slam is coming up. It'll be the final one of the winter. So we'll wrap up this winter's series on Tuesday, March 16th. Again, it'll be accessible through the Facebook, Teton County Library's Facebook event for this event. You know what I'm saying? And the theme on March 16th is rumors and lies. So however you want to play with that, but it has to be a true story that deals with rumors and lies. I've already got mine. I've been trying to figure out when to tell this one story, so I'm pumped on it. Otherwise, let's get to our finishers. Okay, without further ado, in third place, going home with a Cabin Fever hat, give it up for Ryan. In second place, $20 to gift certificate to your business of choice and a Cabin Fever hat, Kelly. Woo! She's hyped. And then in first place with the $40 gift certificate and the Cabin Fever Story Slam hat, give it up for Hamish. All right, you guys, well done. You guys can hit up Leah. And actually, Leah, what would be the best way? You want people to just connect with you through chat right now to get information?
Yes. Hamish, I think I have your email address, correct? Like I've emailed you before. And Kelly, I just messaged you my email address to email me your email address, and then I can get you your prizes.
Sweet.
Did you get it?
I can share Kelly's info too
Oh,
if
okay,
it doesn't work out. Awesome. Well, everybody, again, thanks so much. This has been super fun. I'm so pumped that we get to keep doing these digitally and keep the dream alive. Don't forget, next one is March 16th. The theme is rumors and lies. It's got to be a true story. Otherwise, stay safe, wear your masks, spread out, wash your hands, be cool to each other. We'll get through this, and we love you. Thanks for being a part of the Cabin Fever family.
Thank you.
Can't wait till we get together and get to make lots of noise.
Yeah, maybe in the summer.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.